Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Today is Monday, November 4th, 2024. We are gathered in the Commissioner's hearing room. This is a public meeting. Our two topics for tonight. The first topic is that we'll discuss the proposed fee schedule and budget for the solid waste department, the landfill, and the recycling. And then we'll also allow opportunities for folks to provide public comment, whether here in person or perhaps online. And then we have a presentation regarding our 2025 proposed budget, and we have folks here for that. And the same procedure, a presentation, the commissioners can have a dialogue, and then open it up for public comment. A little bit of additional information, and then I'll introduce us, is that as part of our year-long budget process, it typically begins in April each year, and you'll hear more about that. We do an official budget hearing, and that's what we're doing tonight, as well as looking at the proposed fees for the landfill and the solid waste department. So that's part of the process, and staff will say more about what the next steps are and all of that. So with that, before I forget, I think it would be polite to introduce some of us. My name is John Kafalis, Commissioner, District 1, currently the chair of the Board of County Commissioners, joined by my colleagues, Kristen Stevens, Commissioner from District 2. We, of course, represent the entire county, and Jody Shattuck McNally, Commissioner from District 3. We have some folks across the way. I think I'll hand it off to our county manager if you would be kind enough to introduce yourself and the folks that are here.
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Lorinda Volker. I'm the county manager. We have Michelle Bird from Public Affairs. We have Josh Fudge, our Performance Budget and Improvement Director. I think I got that wrong. We have Alex Jordan from the budget team, and then Matthew Behanen, our budget team lead, who will do the budget presentation as the second part of this meeting.
Thank you, Lorinda. At this time, I'd like to invite our Solid Waste Department Director, Dwayne. Welcome, sir. It's always nice to see you. Please introduce yourself for the record and begin with your presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good evening, Commissioners and everyone. My name is Dwayne Penny, and I'm the Director of Solid Waste. I'll start digging in right away with proposed fee schedule and budget for 2025. The fee schedule is a summary of the price increases by the most common materials that we have that come to the landfill for disposal, and our budget represents the main categories. So I'll start off with our first category in our budget for 2025. It's our revenue. And year to year, our revenue is staying pretty consistent, right around that $16 million mark. And that's a result of approximately 350 to 345,000 tons of waste disposal a year. And that's pretty consistent with the last 5 years. We do have spikes with, shingles and debris from storms and stuff like that. We expect to be pretty flat, which is a good thing. A slight increase in 2025, but I think that's due to shingles. We expect to carry the shingles from this year into next year once the winter season is done. Our landfill expenses for 2025 will continue the construction of our two major projects that we started here in 2024. The North Landfill, which is under construction right now. We are heavily involved in the infrastructure development. We've got a contractor that's been out there for about a month and a half, and he's doing really well. The transfer station, we did just receive hard bids back that we're evaluating, and we're pretty excited about getting that into the mix here too. And then 2025, we will pick the projects up, whatever we do not get finished in 24, and we'll complete both the North Landfill and the transfer station by the end of 2025 with an opening of January of 26. Our solid waste fund balance We started the year out at 59 million, almost 60 million, and we for 24 had 28 million budgeted for our projects. That includes the landfill and the transfer station. And whatever funds we do not use this year, we will roll into next year and continue to complete what we started to this year. And in addition, in 2025, we budgeted enough capital to carry both projects to completion. Any questions on the overview before I start into the fee schedule?
Thank you very much, Dwayne. Good time to ask. Before I check in with my colleagues, I also wanted to mention, and folks can elaborate, the commissioners will not be making any decisions this evening. This is for deliberation. Folks do have an opportunity to provide input, and that's something we would consider, and we will talk more about when the projected date is for the adoption of the 2025 budget in December. So we will not be making any decisions this evening. Let's see if my colleagues have any questions. Commissioner Stevens, you're good?
I'm good, thank you.
Commissioner, oh my goodness. So far, so good, Dwayne.
Thank you. So we're starting into the fee schedule. The 25 fee schedule, 24 to 25, are our most common materials, which are rubble and shingles, compacted waste. We're staying really flat on those. We have a 3% increase on compacted waste, and the other most important waste that I would like to talk about, typically under loose commercial, we have roll-off waste, we have self-haul with trailers, and we have a lot of just self-haul that's all combined into that category. The last 2 years, we have isolated those waste streams out so we could get better control on pricing. And so for 2025, we are going to do roll-off pricing, both loose and compacted, and we're going to convert it or change it from cubic yard to by the ton with a rate of $55 per ton for both loose and compacted roll-offs. And that is probably the biggest change for 2025. The rest of the waste streams remain pretty flat, and I can go through the main categories unless anybody has any questions on the roll-off, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dwayne. I have a question regarding could you go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
So the compacted, could you explain a little bit more about that? Is that what's coming? So the commercial haulers can provide loose material as well as compacted material, and then you make reference to roll-offs. Could you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yes. So last year, I'll go back to last year. Last year when I was presenting, we were going to, for the first time, change compacted rate, which was the cubic yard. Compacted is material that's picked up at residence homes and commercial waste with front load, rear load, those types of trucks that compact it. And we converted our cubic yards to tonnage, and that's working really well this year. We've had some good feedback from some of the haulers, and we've had a lot of requests about changing the roll-off to a per ton rate. The roll-off waste is two types of waste. It's loose. It normally comes in any kind of roll-off container ranging from 5 yards to 40 yards, and it's just loose waste that you see at construction sites, residence homes, and construction projects for a lot of debris from new build and stuff like that. The roll-off compacted is the same size of containers, normally goes from about 10, 15, 20, 30, and 40 yards. Probably not the 40, but the 30. Those are special uses where people put paper in or materials, and it compacts it, and it's real lightweight, and they can get more weight on it. You see those at restaurants. You see them in grocery stores and different places like that. The other type of compact boxes that comes with that is you'll see cardboard boxes, or cardboard that gets compacted. Now that goes to our recycling center, but it's the same type of receiver box.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Anything else, colleagues, at this point? Questions? Okay, please continue.
Thank you. I think the main highlights for price increases for next year, I think the roll-off was the big one. Of course, this is on our website, and people are welcome to call and ask us about any questions. Rubble and shingles are the two that would go up, an increase of $5 a cubic yard. Drywall will stay flat with at $12.75 with commercial loose waste, and those are probably the biggest waste streams that we're going to have price increases on for next year. And that pretty much concludes the landfill. There will not be any price increases at any of the other operations, which includes Estes Park and the two convenience centers. There would be no increases. We'll stay flat with those facilities for 2025.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions? Otherwise, I have one.
Yes.
I don't want to make it too easy for you, Dwayne. So, given that everything, the cost of doing business increases, how are we able to not increase some of these fees other than the ones you referenced, the roll-offs and the shingles and all of that? Yeah.
So what happens is we are starting to get closer to our competitors in a lot of these waste streams. And if we go too high, then we lose our customers. And so we're strategically pricing the waste streams that we feel can accommodate it. And so that's why we're doing it with selected waste streams.
And we're still generating enough revenue to pay the bills.
Yes, we are, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And you might recall that this is a multi-year strategy as we move from the current landfill into the new landfill and transfer station. So this has been an incremental study each year over year, just to make sure we stay competitive, that we are charging competitive rates to still bring material to our facilities and recover costs as much as we can. So I think Dwayne and his staff have done a really good job of finding out what other people are doing and making sure that we're competitive.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Keep going.
So that's pretty much it for our pricing. I have two slides that I'd like to show.
Please.
So this first one is our new transfer station that we're proposing. And it's important to see, this is an interesting transfer station. We have a lot of public with cars and pickups. And so we will be able to accommodate them fairly easily with this transfer station while working with the commercial and self-haulers with trailers and pickups. So it's really an exciting transfer station with a lot of opportunities to take care of our customers.
Thank you, Dwayne. Could you say a little more? Just elaborate. I know you're being very succinct, and but at least we have at least one person here from the public. Maybe say a little bit more why the transfer station is important, where it likely will be located, those kinds of things, how it will help with our diversion goals and that kind of stuff.
Yes, I would be glad to.
Of course.
So our transfer station is unique to the solid waste program. It provides a transportation network so that folks that are going to the landfill now will continue to go to the transfer station. And by using the transfer station, we can mitigate direct haul to the new landfill and really minimize traffic trying to drive out to the new landfill. The transfer station is going to be located at the Larimer County landfill on our own property, and we'll be building a new road into the transfer station up at Trilby, right next to the behavioral health facility. The transfer station will also be the first stage in developing a diversion program for construction and demolition. And we are also looking at this for wood waste, green waste, and a lot of other diversion programs that the transfer station will support by having the transportation and tools to help us build the diversion out. And so it also, in the transfer station, we'll load large transfer trucks. And so we can take like 100 pickups and put it into one transfer truck and save all that hauling out there. And that's the idea with the transfer station and transfer trucks to go to the landfill, is to reduce the carbon footprint. So we're excited about this building and the opportunities for other waste streams as we move forward in the solid waste programs.
And we'll still have the recycling or the materials recovery facility on Taft Hill.
Yes, sir, we will. The recycling center will continue, and we're excited about that program. I'll be able to offer more next year on that program because the extended producer responsibility will be getting ready to get into full swing, and that's very exciting for residents of Larimer County and the new processes for recycling. So we're pretty excited to share that even in greater detail next year.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Yes, you're welcome.
I think you have another slide, don't you?
I have one more slide.
Oh, gosh.
So the building is our new maintenance building. The big building up in the top right, that is our new maintenance building. And then down below, we'll have a scale house and two inbound scales and one outbound scale. And then, of course, the site plan there, it's kind of hard to show anybody what that is, but that's our first cell. And all that will tie in together for our new landfill, which we're hoping to open probably the first quarter of 2026. Probably in the January, February timeframe.
Colleagues, I don't want to. You all want to ask anything or say something?
I'll say something. I don't necessarily need to ask anything. I think it's I think it's great news for the people who are hauling to the landfill that the costs aren't, that the fees aren't going up, very much, and in some cases not at all. So I think people should be, really happy to see that. I appreciate you explaining how we don't want to price ourselves out of business. So, I mean, there is that balance that we have to achieve. So I appreciate you kind of finding the sweet spot on that and making sure that we still get the business that we need to be able to operate the landfill. I don't think I have any questions. Can just in the picture that you have up though, I guess, can you, is that, so the picture with what looks like the smaller location is that kind of, is that the line landfill next to it? Is that what we're seeing, or what is
yes,
that?
Yes,
okay.
that is our first cell. The new landfill has a composite liner, which has a lot of environmental controls in it. It has geosynthetic clay on the bottom, HDPE, 60 mil on top of it with a geosynthetic drainage layer. Altogether, it's about an inch thick, but it's equivalent to 2.5 feet of compacted clay. And so it's a good system for our landfill.
And it, unlike the current landfill, it would be then more resistant to any kind of leaking or anything like that. That's the purpose, right?
Yes, that's the purpose. That's exactly right.
And then just wanted to remind people that I appreciate seeing the fees for recycling, because mattresses and box springs are one of the things that we're now able to recycle at the landfill. And maybe you could let people know you had a good statistics about how many mattresses we've already been able to recycle at the landfill.
Yes, we started tracking mattresses in 2022 and got a really good track on them. In the middle of 2023, we started working with a company called Springback in Denver on recycling. They recycle 100% of the mattresses. And last year we started in June, even in the rainy season, and we were able to recycle over 6,000 mattresses. And this year we're on I think we can hit easily 10 to 12,000 mattresses being recycled this year. So we're pretty excited about that program. And we're getting a lot of good feedback from the public on them.
Yeah, no, I think that's really exciting. And I think, we're only going to see more opportunities to be able to recycle things. So I appreciate you doing the work to really find markets and spaces where we can do some of this recycling, because some things are not that easy to recycle. So I know you and your team are working really hard on that piece, and I really appreciate it. And we know that our communities around Larimer County have really high diversion goals, and that we just wanted to say that we share those same goals. And I think that the mattress recycling is just a step in the right direction, but it's only the start of things to come.
It really is. Our next target is metals, and we'll start to pluck those out of the waste stream literally. And we expect some really good results with metals.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that additional information.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Welcome.
Commissioner Shattuck McNally, questions, comments?
Thank you. First, start with some comments. Dwayne, thank you for your expertise and your diligence, and please express my gratitude to your team. As you know, I drove by today and saw them just going above and beyond in the cold and cleaning up, and just excellent work. And just your team is amazing. You know, I look at these, and you know, we're providing a service. We're not trying to make a profit because we're a county. We're trying to just provide the service to our residents and those who are hauling to this, so that we can, you know, diversion and make sure we're not just, you know, we can do some recycling, but also maybe, you know, divide and conquer these and get them to other places. And I do look at some of these fees, and I don't see the covered versus covered. Is that on here? Is it more? I thought it used to be more if you weren't covered. Is that still? Am I not seeing that?
Which one, Commissioner?
On when we come up to the landfill, is it any of them where if it's covered, it's an extra fee or not? Because we used to have that, so we encourage people not to have things flying out. Is that still part of the program to get discount or to get different fees for having the load covered and protected?
Yes, it is, and it will be on our approved fee schedule, and it goes on the website. We also have it posted at the gate in the landfill, and we try to encourage people to cover their loads for safety and also litter. And that's a very good point, and we do enforce that. So if you come to the landfill without a tarp, you are going to be charged double, only because we have to go and pick all that up, and it's really a safety issue too. So
yeah, and that's why I want to thank
yes.
staff, because I see them all the time, and they are doing great work, and I know they're right there by the cars zipping by. So just thank you. You run a wonderful team, and you've been a fantastic addition. You're an asset to our county, and I can't stress that enough. You've been phenomenal. When I look at kind of this roll-off waste, can you just go back and explain that again and expand just the roll-off waste for this one that's going up to 50, it's a new fee for 55. Could you just kind of go back and explain that again for me? Is that just someone with a hauler who's just dumping and rolling it off, or what is that? What is that?
So a roll-off, in the industry, a roll-off container is a 30-yard box that a hauler can put on the back of his truck by use of a cable. He can cable it up on to the truck and then take it to somebody and drop it off, and then they can fill it. And then when it's full, he goes and recovers it. And we have we have a lot of roll-off companies that come to our landfill, anywhere from 5-yard, cubic yard boxes for special applications. We have 20-yard boxes, 30 and 40 for different applications. And so by charging by the cubic yard, we are really pricing ourselves out of the market. And so we wanted to convert it to by the ton to encourage more business, and also make it a little bit more even for our haulers, so that they come to our landfill too, and we can be competitive with our competitors.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for restating that in a way that really makes sense to me. So thank you. And then lastly, well, actually, second to last, I see for Estes Park stayed the same, but Wellington and Red Feather convenience centers just only seems to have one charge. Are they not equipped to do kind of all the other services like Estes Park and stuff has? So that's just why there's the one fee, the loose waste?
No, they are not. So,
Okay.
so the convenience centers are just compactor boxes, and we take care of people's. We call it black bag waste, and those compactors do not take trees and branches and stuff like that without getting plugged up. So, because the Wellington and Red Feather Lakes areas have minimal haulers, and we provide that service for those communities, and as we open the new landfill, we'll be able to do something different with the Wellington Convenience Center. And then Red Feather Lakes will probably continue it, but hopefully expand it to do a little bit more. That's the goal, because with the new recycling coming, we'll be able to offer more on the
Excellent.
recycling.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much. Again, just really appreciate all your expertise and your work on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'm going to ask two more quick questions and then see if our county manager has anything. And then we should open it up in case folks want to offer public comment. My two questions are this. The first one is, why is the opening of the new landfill, the timing of the opening of the new landfill for the first quarter of 2026, why is that so important based on the current landfill?
So the Larimer County landfill, the existing landfill, is planned to be filled in the first quarter of 2026. So we've timed everything so that we can move from one landfill to the other. And we know there's going to be some overlap there in the operations. And so we'll do a soft opening at the new landfill, which means we have a liner system now. So we have to be really careful how we get down on that new liner with waste. And so it's going to take us a couple months to build pads. And so we have that planned into our work plan to be able to make that change smooth so that our customers don't lose a lot of or lose a place to dispose of their waste.
Thank you. And my last and final question is, one of the expenses listed on the slide with the solid waste expenses, the bar graphs, shows hazardous waste. What is that?
So that we wanted to start showing that bar graph as our household hazardous waste facility. That facility, we take in about 500 tons of hazardous waste from residents and small businesses annually. And our disposal fees for that facility and just the operations average about $1 million a year. And if we can continue our swap and drop program, we're giving back to the public 30% of that. It drops that cost down considerably. And so we really encourage and wanted to start talking more about that so people use those more to come and get those materials. So instead of sending them off for disposal, they can reuse them. And it's really a good program and starting to take traction to get even bigger.
Great. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for all the good work that you and your team do. Lorenda, is there anything you'd like to add before we open it up to public comment?
I'll just say that these rates are important because this is not supported by property tax. It is an enterprise fund supported by fees. So reviewing these fees on a regular basis, looking at our competitors, thinking about operating the current landfill, operating the new landfill, construction, closure of the current landfill, all of those are expenses that have to be covered out of this fund. And that's why these rates and this rate setting is so important as we try to balance out, keep staying competitive and covering our costs.
Thank you, Lorenda. Thank you, Dwayne. Why don't you take a seat?
Okay.
So we'll now open it up to public comment. There are no requirements here, but if anyone wishes to offer comment on the topic at hand, I think we generally give folks about 3 minutes. Jim, did you want to offer any comment on what you've heard tonight? You don't have to.
Thank you.
Okay. Then, Alex or Michelle, can you check online to see if anybody is listening and watching and wishes to offer public comment?
We do have people watching, but no one has offered any comment yet.
Oh. Well, then that may indicate a number of things, but one would hope that it indicates we're doing our best to do a good job. So at this time, we'll close public comment regarding the proposed landfill, the proposed fees for 2025, and it looks like our PBS director has come to the podium. And Dwayne, thank you so much. And if you need to head home, please do, sir.
Thank you.
We do appreciate you. I just was trying to.
So, good evening. My name is Josh Fudge. I'm the Director of Performance, Budget, and Strategy for the county. Just a reminder on the landfill fees as well. There will be a period of deliberation, and those are usually adopted for the next year at an admin matters meeting, which takes place on Tuesday mornings, probably early to mid-December, is generally what we've done, depending on how you'd like to move forward. I'm just providing a brief introduction, and then I'll turn it over to our budget team lead, Matt Bohannon, to walk through this. This presentation is similar to those given in prior meetings. We've had a number of community conversations and meetings with community leaders, meetings out in the public to describe what's in the proposed budget, the impacts and the considerations that have gone into it. As was mentioned earlier, this is a year-round process that began really back in April and May when you saw the initial budget targets. And so this is an overview of what is in our 2025 proposed budget, and I will turn it over to Matt.
Thank you, Josh.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight is the public hearing on the 2025 proposed budget. This has been properly noticed in the newspaper according to state statute and is posted on the county website, larimer.gov/budget, for any who would like to read through the, I think it's 300 pages of budget narrative and fund tables. Okay, so we'll walk through the highlights, and the challenge we have is to give a narrative, the story behind all this, the numbers in the spreadsheet, and so we'll try and do that tonight. First, we'll go, so here's our agenda. We'll go through the budget calendar. We'll talk about the fiscal environment we're operating in, and then the key decisions in the budget. We'll talk about the numbers, the budget itself, and then show a forecast of the general fund reserves. And finally, we'll end with opportunities for the public to provide feedback on the budget. So the budget process is an annual thing that we continually update the budget, but really the preparation for the next fiscal year begins in April with strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges analysis. Then in May, there's a work session where you all provide direction on initial budget targets for the following year. And then those targets form the base budget, especially in the general fund, and departments can build, move around, request new budget amendments all throughout the summer. And then August and September, once all the budgets and capital plans have been submitted, the county manager will meet with every single department and elected office to review their budgets, go over all the positions, all the lines, and every proposal. Then during that time, September and the fall, we meet with you all and we review what the county manager has as her initial recommendations for the budget, what new service proposals and capital plans to include, and you provide us direction. And then by October 15th, that's a state statutory deadline for the county manager to propose a budget. So when we say proposed budget, it really is the county manager's proposal for you all. And tonight we have a public hearing on the landfill rates and then also the proposed budget. Tomorrow is election day. That's important to the county budget because of ballot items. Every tax rate increase has to go to the voters for approval. And so election day is a day for the entire county to participate in the budget process. There's often items on the ballot for the budget. And then after this proposed hearing and through November, there's final budget retreat. There may be adjustments. We've received feedback from the public and from you all. There may be changes based on the election. And then we'll present to you a final budget for adoption and also the mill levy certification. That's the actual vote where you appropriate by resolution funds for each department. And you also set the mill levy rates for taxation, property taxes. And that's the calendar. We'd go through it every year, and throughout the year, there's also opportunities to amend the budget, and we bring that revised budget resolution to you at the same time as the following year budget adoption. So major projects impacting the budget. Facilities have been a main theme the past few years and also in the 2025 budget. Behavioral health facility is about a year through its operation. It was opened about a year ago. Solid waste, you just saw some slides on projects going on at the new North Landfill. A new fleet services facility just opened on Friday after years of looking for land, acquiring land, building a facility, making decisions on that. Really pleased for that department to finally have a facility to operate in. Some of the vehicles were so large that they were being worked on outdoors. The facility couldn't even accommodate them. The ranch has a master plan that's got projects that are impacting the budget, both capital and ongoing operating. And then the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, the BEAD state broadband program. We have received direction to apply for some projects to provide broadband in rural areas where there's underserved communities. So the other fiscal factor that we've been dealing with the past few years has been inflation, which has stabilized, is closer to that 2% Federal Reserve target. But we are still dealing with natural disasters, especially wildland fires, big increases in public safety liability insurance costs, hiring difficulties in a few departments, and then legislative uncertainty, mostly at the state level. We continue to review the state governor's proposed budget. They're doing a budget process just like we are, and many of the county programs are funded either in whole or in part by state grants and state funds. And so the latest budget forecast, as of when this presentation was put together, the state reserves were below their target of 15%. They had revenue shortfalls. There's always a risk of a recession, but could impact the state budget significantly because of the low reserves. There's also a few ballot items that would require the state to fund additional programs. And just so you all know that we've seen the governor's budget released just this week, and it does have proposed reductions to some county programs within human services and the health department. So we'll continue to monitor those. The budget's not set until the legislature adopts it, just like you all. But our programs could be impacted by that. So that's another budget consideration we're operating under. So the county works under an incremental budget process. We set those base budget targets. Then departments come and propose service proposals, so requests for new budget allocations, or sometimes the county will also request that departments submit reductions. There were a few reductions that were included in the 2024 budget that we're operating under. For 2025, we received nearly $12 million in proposals for additional general fund property tax support. Only $4.5 million of those proposals, those requests are included in the 2025 proposed budget. $3.1 million ongoing, $1.4 million one time. And we evaluate those based on whether we're required to do them by state statute, if we have to meet existing obligations or grants. Sometimes it will be a gain in efficiency to spend money on a software project or an efficiency project, and then your strategic priorities as well. So these are all the service proposals. There's a few slides of these. I won't read through all of them. But the main, if we're trying to tell the story of the budget, one of the chapters should be about public safety costs. For multiple years in a row, we've seen 7 figures worth of cost increases just to continue to operate the same services that we have always provided. Some of these are related to state laws, changes in state laws that we're required to follow that don't have accompanying funding sources. So this first one, Sheriff's Sworn Officer Compensation, this is related to the Sheriff's STEP plan, adding a step in the certified deputy range to stay competitive in the market. Another one we'll call out is the Child Abuse Prevention Services for Human Services. This is a partially funded request, 3 positions out of 5. There's a lot of evidence that this may save us funding in the long run and also has got good outcomes for children. I'm happy to take any questions about any of these if you want reminders. Alex can pull up the narratives as well.
Questions, colleagues? Commissioner Stevens?
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay.
So Matthew, I'll just add that some of these were grant-funded programs or state-funded programs where the funding has ended, but the outcomes are so good. Like this child abuse prevention service, we're not able to fund it as that grant funded it fully, but we can partially fund that program because we do think it is beneficial to the community.
On the second slide, a lot of these are administrative costs or absorbing indirect allocations, but the self-insured liability program, this is to backfill the risk fund, which is the self-insured liability program. That's $1 million. We start to see larger and larger payouts for public safety claims, and so that's what that's about. That's a one-time request and funding. Okay, also what's important to talk about is what's not in the budget. The county is not able to fund every and all requests and needs at this time, particularly in capital. There's a new emergency services building that's been planned. There's been land purchased, but there's still a gap in the funding for completing that facility. And we continue to look for grants and partners and alternative ways to fund the remaining, I think it's about $6 or $7 million, a gap in the reserves for that program. There's also a $200 million Justice Center facility need, according to the latest facilities master plan. Not in the budget at this time. Unfunded road capacity is $15 million annual. This amount is similar to the amount on the ballot for the transportation sales tax. Unfunded service proposals, these would be all the requests submitted by all the departments that were not prioritized and not included in the budget. And then also BEAD grant, broadband grant projects that we may have applied for, but we're not able to do in the 2025 proposed budget.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. I guess I wanted to just make sure that people understand the $200 million Justice Center facility needs not being in the budget. Well, first of all, it's not in the budget because it's really pricey. And second of all, wanted the community members to understand that we are statutorily required by the state to provide Justice Center, so courtrooms, for our judicial officers. And there is no funding that comes with that from the state. And so, and these are sophisticated facilities that require a lot of security measures and courtrooms, and so that's why the price tag is so high. It's why it's not in the budget, but it is something that we have to contemplate in the future. And so I just really wanted to make sure that people understand that it's not that we're doing this frivolously in any kind of way. We have a Justice Center that we've largely outgrown. And so this is something that we have to look at, as well as the other sort of unfunded things that are on this list. These are, especially with the emergency services building and the road capacity, we have to figure out ways to fund these programs. We just do not have a plan for that at this time. We are developing plans to figure out how to meet the needs of the community. But anyway, that I just wanted to add that color to that.
Okay. And so here's a list of some of the unfunded service proposals. These 6 are Office of the Sheriff needs. So public safety continues to, it's driving a large portion of existing spending and also the growing needs of county services. Here are a few more. Financial services, administrative support, outreach and engagement from the health department, process improvement position. And then so these 3 requests, they were requested to be funded by the general fund, and we've received direction to fund them through other reserves, specifically in the facilities capital reserves for both the Estes Park shared facility with the school district and then the court clerk at the Justice Center. This is one of those, we've been calling them Band-Aids, these relatively minor remodels that are taking place at the Justice Center and have taken place. And then $100,000 will come from disaster response reserves to mitigate erosion at the Natural Resources Visitor Center at Horsetooth Reservoir.
I'll add here that the unfunded needs are not frivolous needs. So as we went through each department and office's requests, everything would be great for the community. We don't have the resources and we live within our means here at the county. And so really difficult decisions had to be made about what got funded and what didn't get funded in the proposed budget. But none of these were throwaways. None of these were things that would not benefit the community. To the credit of the leaders in each area, they really did give thought to what can we do. But we do encourage them to go ahead and submit a request so that we understand what their future needs are, even though we know that we cannot fund many of the requests that come in.
So now we've gotten finally to the actual numbers of the budget. The budget is broken up into revenue budgets and expense budgets. Typically, we think of a household budget as what we can spend, but it includes also revenues, right? So the total revenue budget for 2025 will be just over $607 million, which is a decrease from the 2024 revised budget, largely due to the end of ARPA revenues, American Rescue Plan Act, COVID response dollars. On the expense side, the expense budget is also declining from the 2024 revised budget to the 2025 proposed, and will be $650 million, just over $650 million, which is a 6% decrease from 2024. Okay, I did it again. So then we are always looking at our general fund reserves and a projection of where our reserves will be. And these are some of the factors that have led to a partly cloudy, we have the icon up there, partly cloudy forecast for the general fund. The risk of recession is down, the inflation is down. Also, we are expecting interest rates to decline. We have interest earnings in our budget. We have a new cap on property tax revenue growth, 5.25 per year, 10.5% growth per election or reappraisal cycle. And then the biggest one we continue to monitor is legislative uncertainty, what will come from the state and the federal government levels. And there is our projected general fund and disaster contingency ending fund balance, also known as the reserves. Our target is to be in between 20% and 10% of ongoing spending, and we are on track to, over the next few years, be within those two. I will put in the caveat that this forecast and all forecasts are very sensitive to assumptions, and this does not assume a recession. It does not assume a natural disaster. It does not assume, I guess I said recession, but it does assume growth in service proposals about 3 to 4 million per year, which is pretty in line with historical what has been approved in past budgets, and it includes the property tax revenue cap. So all the things we've talked about, all the service proposals that you've seen are built into this forecast of future revenues, or future reserves rather.
So this is really an important graph for you and for the public. You've seen it before, of course. This assumes we sort of operate as normal, and this cap is applied, and we don't do anything different. And you all know that we're working with leaders early next year to really figure out what do we do to reduce that slant so that we don't fall below the yellow line. We don't want to operate as usual. We understand that that revenue will look different, and so our services may look a little different, and we'll have lots of conversation about that over the next 12 to 18 months. We don't have to act quickly, but we do have to act. And so we'll be looking to county department heads and elected officials to suggest places where maybe there's less public contact, or that we could provide a service online and maybe not fill a vacancy. Those are the kind of things that we can do that really will change the trajectory here. And we don't have to approve the service proposals as we've done, but we wanted to demonstrate that if we can continue business as usual with this new cap in place, this is what happens, which we think demonstrates we can't continue business as usual. Some things will need to change, and we'll be working on that as a team to make that happen.
Thank you. Any questions about this, colleagues, or comments? Yes.
I appreciate your, well, first, Matthew, well done. Thank you. Thank you, budget team, Alex and Josh, everyone, just amazing. We do this all year round, so we have, just for the public's knowledge, we're not asking a lot of questions because this is probably what we've had all these public budget forums, and we've talked about this, so this is probably this 6th or 7th time we've had, this discussion in the just last couple of months. So it's really important to share with the public just how hard you guys work year round. I want to thank you. And then I appreciate your comments, Lorinda, to kind of explain that if we just kept things as is and didn't pull any levers or do anything because of the cap, and this is not even talking about even more unfunded mandates that would make that go down, or if we had a major, like another Cameron Peak or a 2013 flood, our disaster contingency would be evaporated immediately, completely, pretty much, I think, knowing how much the costs were for the 2013 flood. And then, so when we talk about just business as usual, it doesn't mean that we're growing anything. It means that's just to keep current things happening and curtain lights, the curtain lights on. So we'd have to start cutting, certain things that the public wants to see us to do, but they're not statutorily required. Is that an accurate statement?
I think that's where we start, is what are we required to do by the state? Counties have obligations under state statute to do certain things, like have a jail, provide court space, those kind of things. There are things that we do that are measured that the state requires, and there are things that we do that we have to do, but there's no measure. So, and then there are things we do that are good for the community that we've been able to do. We may not be able to continue in the same form. So that's how we'll start the discussion in February with our leaders is, what does that look like in your area? What ideas do you have? How might we share resources across service areas? across elected offices so that we can perhaps reduce. I'm not talking about layoffs, I'm not talking about mass cuts, but how do we have a plan so that in the next 18 months, we get where we need to be, taking advantage of vacant positions, of contracts that are coming up that maybe we can change the terms of? How do we act with intention as we go forward to make sure that we're providing those required services at the best level we can, and maybe less impact on the community by choosing wisely which things do stop happening or stop happening in the way they're happening today.
Thank you for that. And I just think it's important for folks to understand. There's some things that have been out of our control that we have to adjust and make adjustments to because of those things. So thank you very much. I appreciate your leadership here.
Matthew, a question I have is looking at this slide, in addition to the property tax revenue cap that you've referenced, what other factors are contributing to this reduction in the general fund balance and the disaster contingency fund balance?
Yeah, this shows all revenues and all expenses within the general fund. And so there's personnel increases, operating increases related to inflation. There's sales tax revenues, specifically for the jail operations. That 0.15 that's dedicated to that is fit into the general fund. Anytime, though, just to explain the chart how it works, anytime the line goes down, we're seeing a year where revenues are expected to be lower than expenses. You'll notice in the out years, in 2031, 32, we come out of that structural deficit and have again a structural surplus due to the expiring tax increment financing districts, especially Centera and Timnath, which are forecasted to reach their end of their 25-year terms at the end of the decade.
Thank you. Please continue.
Okay. The final slide would be on public feedback. So this is an important topic. It is the public's budget. These are public taxpayer dollars that are funding many of these services. If you would like to provide public feedback, you can do so at a hearing like this and provide public comment on the record. But there's a lot of other informal ways to provide feedback through email, community conversations with you all. We do a biannual community survey, which is a statistically valid public survey that is done by our Public Affairs Office. You can explore the budget details at this website, larimer.org/budget/explorer. If you want to see visuals, and you can see a taxpayer receipt to see where your property taxes go specifically to which jurisdictions, what agencies. And then throughout the year, there's opportunities to serve on advisory boards, which if you would like to look up a vacancy for a program or county service of interest, such as the Open Lands Board of the Health Department or Ranch Advisory Board, Ag Advisory Board, those boards set policy direction and approve strategic plans and capital master plans that go into informing the budget in very specific areas. And then finally, you can attend the budget adoption hearing, which will be on December 11th at 2:30 p.m. on the second floor Commissioners Conference Room, where you all will vote. And I think that concludes my slides. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Matthew, for you and your team. Before we open it up for public comment, colleagues, do you have any other questions or comments, or perhaps Lorinda? Yes.
I guess I'll just thank you, Matthew, for the presentation. I just want to highlight, the fact that I think Matthew's right that public safety is a lot of the story of our budget. But I think another piece of the story is that we're really not growing government. So there are very few, if any, full-time positions that are part of this budget. There are, a lot of the programs that we're funding are programs that had previously been funded by grant dollars, and we'd like to continue because we think they're valuable. So the story also of the budget is that we're really trying to live within our means, that we're aware that things will get tighter in the future, and that we are really trying to concentrate on programs that we feel will benefit the community, or that we've heard from the community that would benefit them through some of the surveying and other things that we've done. But we are really trying to be good stewards of the public's dollars, and and not grow government, but continue to provide valuable services to our community. And so, I do think that that story is also told in this budget. There's a lot more that we didn't do than we did do, and there are things that we'd like to do, but we're really trying to prioritize and strategically spend these dollars. So, I wanted to make sure that that was clear. Thank you.
I'll just add that I appreciate those comments. It's also important for folks to know, the public, that we have a balanced budget. Our fiscal year is the same as the calendar year, so whatever we adopt on December 11th would take effect January 1st of next year. And one of our guiding principles, maybe Lorinda could speak to this, is about being good stewards, whether it's stewards of the public treasure or certainly our natural resources and all of that. So I think it's important for folks to understand that we do have these guiding principles, and that helps point us in a good trajectory regarding these matters.
I'll add to both of your comments. The leadership team is acutely aware of being good stewards is their responsibility. And so when they ask for things, they're almost apologetic, trying to do more. Many of the things that are requested are unfunded mandates from the state. So there's legislation that passes with the best of intention. I'm thinking law enforcement body-worn cameras. That material has to be reviewed by a supervisor. It has to be stored. Storage costs money. It costs money to purchase the cameras and the software that goes along with it. As we add new medical requirements to jail inmates, we have $1 million increase in medical costs at the jail just to do the same thing we've been doing. And so when we talked earlier about uncertainty about the state budget and the impact it may have on our human services programs, we may be back talking to you about what we can't do sooner than later, because we will see the state budget adopted here soon. That is always a concern of ours as we go forward, is what does the state require us to do where they fund, and then when they reduce that funding, what does that mean to our community? And so our Board of Social Services, as you all meet as the Board of Social Services, is a great meeting to listen to if you're interested in that, because our Human Services Director really outlines what the legislation is doing, what the budget provides for her, and what challenges she has around providing those services. So I would say, if you're listening and you're interested in budget and county expenses, especially in that area, that's a great meeting to listen to or to go online and watch later, and be able to provide feedback to that.
Thank you. Just one more thing I'd like to mention, and then if no one else has something, we can see if there's public comment. I'm reminded, and help me make sure I get this right, but one of the information pieces that we considered maybe back in September at one of our budget retreats, and this gets back to looking at the general fund balance graph and trying to prepare, do things differently, and how do we adjust. But I think we came up with a slide. You all put that together, or the strategic leadership of the department heads, and that is columns that showed what is required or mandated and what is not. And I think that information is really helpful, and maybe one of you folks could speak to that. But that information is really helpful as we discern further, how we're going to make the numbers match up.
It'll be really critical,
Okay.
that first blush with departments telling us what they do.
Okay, that's
They
it.
do many services and not all of
That's
them are
right.
mandated, but some of them may be. So the budget team is actually meeting with each department and office to better understand exactly what is required so that as we get into these workshops with our leaders, we have a framework to start from. Things that we must do a certain way, we need to understand what that looks like and try to find efficiencies there so that we can still meet that requirement, all the way down to the things that we are not required to do, but we do because they benefit the community.
Great. Thank you. Anything else you want to add, Matthew?
We met with 5 departments today on that service inventory, trying to understand
Service inventory.
the scope, the scale of each program and service countywide.
Service.
Yeah, and we'll continue to evaluate that for possibilities to make better data-driven decisions. Maybe do some process improvement projects where we can gain efficiencies, look at overlap, or just the impact, how many residents are served by each of those. And the county provides hundreds of services across almost 30 departments and elected offices.
And I imagine that further analysis of that service inventory, thank you, will help inform our, as we begin the process again
Yes.
next year to determine the 2026 budget. So that's why that's all important.
Continuous improvement.
Well, I think we're good. We'll pause for a moment, and it looks like no one is here in person. Therefore, I don't think we have public comment in person. I need to check online. There are folks watching or listening.
We still do have folks watching and
Oh,
listening.
good.
However, we do not have any comment for public comment.
Okay. Then we'll close public comment. We have a mid-November budget retreat. December 11th is when we are to uh, uh, adopt the 2025 budget. And is that also the revised 2024? Yes, of course. And also certify the mill levies. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I think that's all then. So we have concluded our business for this evening. 7:08 p.m. We are adjourned. Oh.